So I have one more thing to say about this, because I've got to nail you down now.
Uh-oh, here we
What's
go.
with
I'm in trouble. I can feel the trouble brewing.
what's with the past life amnesia?
Well, I think that's for our own benefit, don't you? I mean, can you imagine coming back here and having all of your past life information? I mean, holy shit.
Well, you wouldn't want to
Seriously,
stay.
sorry for swearing, but
You would not want
honestly,
to
how
stay.
would you cope with it?
Well,
Okay.
I said you wouldn't want to stay. And I was in a social experiment with a lot of other people, an extraterrestrial social experiment as a star seed, and what I recognize to be an engineered lifetime.
Yeah.
And which is another thing. I'm going to nail you down on that one too.
Oh, I'm in trouble today.
Why is there star seeds and why is there regular people who aren't star seeds but have souls and everything else? So, because what I'm kind of like, what we're getting at is that there is a type of there's an augmented reality, and that there's people coming and there's people from elsewhere who are here. So what is this? And I'm just trying to get you to define it instead of me this time. That's what I'm kind of leading you on. Okay, so let's just get down to, okay, you've said that it's to protect us, and that's one aspect of it.
To protect us, yeah.
But why are we here then? What would be the purpose for, okay, a star seed coming here in the first place? And what about all these other people here who have had past lifetimes, but they're all earthbound? Okay, so why would the ETs, is it the ETs that are preventing them from remembering too, if they're preventing us from remembering? Wouldn't it be
possibly that's part of it? Yeah, definitely.
They're all trapped in the same program. They're just a different part of it, right? Is that what you think? Something, or whatever you define as program, but I don't want to sound too clinical.
Yeah, that is pretty clinical. Well, again, I think there's different groups of people. Why do I think there's different groups of people? Humans are, well, if you want to look at it as an experiment, humans were an experiment, but I think we've reached a point, and this is what I've been led to be told or led to believe.
Well, I don't think they're an experiment. I think they're a fledgling race project. That's how they were described, because the Hajian race was genetically engineered, and I was told that the norm in the universe, or the multiverse, is for races to come together and then genetically engineer new races. So life creates life. And I asked them one time, I said, well, wouldn't that be a kind of a violation of Source's will? Or because if you were to take over for Source, and you're actually playing God, aren't you? So isn't that unethical? And I was the way it was explained to me is that no, this is the will of Source, is for us to create more life. And we're just fulfilling. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. I said, is that actually the will of Source, or is that just what we want to put out there? And we're doing that here on the planet now. We're creating life, and we're doing things that, it does question the whole creation and God thing. So how do I feel about that personally? I don't think we should be doing that, if that's just my personal belief. Well, are they doing an amazing job?
You shouldn't be doing it. Okay, you shouldn't be doing it if you don't know what you're doing, because then you're causing horrible suffering. But what if you do know what you're doing? What if this is part of the overall Source consciousness that you can? It's like the Akashic records. What if all this information on how to do this properly is already there and accessible to anyone who's fully telepathic and not in a consciousness simulation, not in augmented reality, and that all the technology that's out there, that there's complete instructions and complete concepts you can connect to. So if you're a race, like say they turned off the planetary consciousness simulation on this world and all of the starseeds left, and it was just the people who were here. And let's just say they didn't have any technology that's, beyond what we're being told that we have. Suddenly they would be connected to all this information, So it's like taking a computer and putting it on an internet, putting it on a network, and now everybody can network together. So all these minds are networking together in this psychic network, which you know, that's the collective consciousness. That's the Akashic records. That's everything. So you can get all this information so that there's not going to be a lot of mistakes that are going to be made. And what if the act of actually having a child, you know, two people coming together out of love, having a baby, what if this is just a step up from that to where civilizations come together and create new life? It's like having children. You have, you know, like in this case, I was told there was 9 actual races that genetically engineer humanity. So technically they would have come together and had a baby together. Essentially, they would be producing new life. So what if that's just a stepping stone? Like you can do it on the micro and you can do it on the macro. What do you think about that? Because then it would make sense to be the will of source if it's done properly. And source is giving the directions, because source, the source consciousness is where that information is, just like the technology, just like the information to be able to, you know, to build a spacecraft so you can visit another civilization. All right, so go ahead.
Then you're at that point where you say, well, just because we can, does it mean that we should? I mean, are humans as a race advanced enough to be able to understand fully what they're doing? And I would at this stage say no, I don't think we do.
I would fully agree.
But that's just my opinion for now. Is that going to be the same in years to come? Probably not. We will probably be more advanced, but we really need to sort out ourselves here on the planet as a free race, as human race, and then move forward from there, because this is where this conflict is happening now. I mean, you've got, as you say, starseeds that are here now that are awakening up. They're also prompting awakening in normal human beings. Are we that different? I don't think so.
No,
are aliens that different from the source energy? No, I don't think so. I think we're all connected to the source energy, and I think that that's what we're missing in all of this. And we're also missing the fact that spiritually we are a lot more switched on than we give ourselves credit for, and we dumb ourselves down to fit in, you know, because I mean there's nothing worse than not fitting in.
So anyway, this sort of gets into the next phase of this conversation, where we're going to talk about engineered lifetime experiences. And what exactly is an engineered lifetime? Well, it's kind of self-explanatory. Somebody is creating a series, or like an itinerary of experiences that they have in store for someone, putting them into a human lifetime in an augmented reality, and then doing things, whether it be in, you know, making them healthy or sick, or just trying to guide certain outcomes of certain things that happen, not just within that person's lifetime, but within multiple people's lifetimes, and overall engineering the entire society as well to go a certain direction. So in other words, if you were to look back and go from all of the world wars, starting with World War I, let's just say there was ET manipulation in some of those events, and that we're being kind of like walked through a pre-written history. And that's, if you look at, you know, scriptures, you know, the Revelations, for example, that it certainly seems, and it is, that we actually are going through that scenario, which was kind of like, it's more of an allegorical version in scripture, but we are going through that, and it depends on how you interpret it. But no matter how you look at it, we are going through something like that. And there would be no way possible to predict everything and write it down and say, okay, this is what happened, and get it all right down to the spelling, because people wouldn't even understand it anyway until we got to the point where it actually started to take place. But anyway, so
okay, but I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Nate, just for a second. While you're saying about the book of Revelation, what if somebody back then decided, okay, if we write down this information and the people read it and they understand it, and they actually have their thought intention going in that direction, then we can actually manipulate and control that situation so that it goes the way that we've written.
predictive. Yeah, that's actually called predictive programming. But what if also they would be staging events to, to get us to that point? And then, I would say one of the reasons why it's written in such a vague way, and then there's other, scriptures you can plug into it. And some people have theories that that other stuff kind of helps to clarify what the revelations means and so forth. But I don't want to get too much into that. I just want to kind of give it an idea here, where you have on like a micro level, you have an extraterrestrial hand that actually plays God within a consciousness simulation, and that it's being done at an individual level with certain people, and then it's being done on a macro level with the entire civilization. And that this is what you would have to do if you completely cut everyone off from each other. They're not telepathic, they're not connected so much to the source, but very weakly, just a tiny bit. And not everybody, because some people are like, they're completely cut off by their own accord. It's something that they've done to their self. Okay, because at least you could have some faith in something or have a belief system. And then there's people that don't even have that, so they're really cut off from it, and they're locked into the five senses, and they will fight like a what you would call a rational skeptic would be in opposition to any of this discussion. They would be like, oh, that's complete nonsense, and I can come up with a bunch of different excuses to to substantiate my belief system. Okay, except for how do you explain eyewitness testimony and all the other evidence? But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But so anyway, what I'm saying is we're in an engineered reality, and we're being kind of walked through this. And anyway, we have some degree of free will, but a lot of it's been taken away. And that's quite obvious, especially when you get down, to the government level, and then you go below it. But as far as engineered lifetimes go, I have a memory of a soul transference where I was in a lab. And initially, when I had this memory, I had it ever since I can remember. So it feels like the first memory I've ever had. It's right there with my youngest childhood memories. And it was a memory that I had that as I grew older and I started to try to pick it apart and figure it out, I became more aware of that it was an anomaly in all of my memories. It was something very out of the norm that other people didn't have. But when I remembered it, it was in a white fog. So now that it's in a white fog, I'm thinking it's heaven. So for a long time, I thought that these are angels and this was some kind of heavenly realm, but it just didn't feel right. And the older I got, the more that it felt like something else, that it wasn't really that. And then I had forgotten parts of it. And then I started having flashbacks in chronological order. And each time I had the flashback, it would fill in a little piece of what happened. And there would be more than just, it was a full memory where I had the context of what I've almost not the full context, but a kind of a limited context of why I was there. And I knew that I was coming here, that I was in this lab or medical setting, and there was 3 people in the room, and that's become a little clearer. I was trying to figure out, it was like 3 or 4, but it was actually 3. I had some help from Ash on that one. These were 3 life engineers, and then I was in this lab setting or like a medical setting, and there was this large machine. It looked like an MRI machine, but it was much bigger. It was like 2 or 3 times bigger than that. And the stature, now that I know that we were close to 8 feet tall, the stature, the height of this machine was probably 13 or 14 feet tall. It was pretty big, and it had an enclosure that would stay open, so you could lay on a bed, and then it had like an enclosure that you could see through that would close down over top of you like a hinge lid, and then it would fill up full of light. And what happened was I was in this room, and I'm really anxious. I'm really nervous. And I know that. And I was worried about, I was going to be sent to Earth, and I was going to be given some kind of a handicap. And it was apparently this was the part of the memory. It was just before I was told that. And now you may be asking yourself, okay, you're talking about being in a telepathic society. So how could they keep a secret from you? Well, what I found out later is that they can create a localized consciousness simulation, which creates like a perimeter of energy around a facility, and then they can actually keep information in that facility, so you can't access it. And what I knew the way it was explained to me is that I was under psychiatric care, and what they do is when that particular treatment doesn't work, you have to go and they put you in an engineered lifetime experience for rehabilitation purposes. And that's why most star seeds are here in the first place. And but also too, you can volunteer, and some people were just pure volunteers. They had no personality disorders, no mental illness of any kind. They were very heroic people and very together and very mentally and emotionally healthy, and they volunteered to come here to do something special. Now there are those people, but they're the minority. There's also a group of star seeds that never wake up and just have a regular lifetime. That's for various reasons. It could be their choice, or it could be something that was prearranged that prevents them from doing it, from actually volunteering. And I was also told that when you come here as a volunteer, or just someone for therapeutic purposes to be awakened, that you volunteered for that, it's like joining the military. You don't know what you're going to be doing. They pick what they want you to do, and that's all. And everything has to do with your personality profile, and if you've been used before like that. Because I've met plenty of people now that now they have memories of actually being someone in the past that was influential in a lot of cases. They'll also have memories of just being regular people, but they had psychic abilities in a lot of these other lifetimes that they've had here on Earth. So what I'm saying is that they've been using us, the star seeds, to come here and to socially engineer humanity for a long time. And people volunteer to be possibly civil rights leaders, military leaders, presidents, pharaohs, kings. In fact, the Egyptian religion talked about the pharaohs were descended from the gods. They were kind of half god, half human hybrids in a sense, or their soul was, or their consciousness was. And so these were people, these were star seeds. And we have that connection where we were members of the Egyptian, we were basically clergy. We worked in the temple and so forth, and we're a husband and wife team. So we were influential in that. And those people had a psychic connection with the extraterrestrials who portrayed themselves as gods. So there's people that are coming here repetitively who have contributed to this entire, what I call a planetary social engineering program. And they're coming back. So people that have been famous people and have done something positive in the world's history, and also people, unfortunately, who were here to do something negative as part of a planetary social engineering program, are coming back to do something. It may be something positive this time, and maybe they have changed and now they're being utilized in a different way, or maybe they're here to do harm. But it's all part of an engineered history, so that we have this war between negative, it's a war between good and evil. That's what I'm getting at. And we're all kind of playing a part in this, and we're waking up to this. And when a lot of us are
doing this for thousands of years too. Like, this is the thing. I mean, I love sitting here talking to you, and that picture behind. Yeah, but remember I said to you, and you said through your other experience, because I said Egypt's the key. There's something about Egypt that's the key to all this, and we really need to look closer at it. I don't know if we're not being, explained the full hieroglyphics when they're doing the transcriptions across, or what it is, but there's something there that they're not telling us. Something big is what I feel. Will we find it? I hope so. I hope with you and I talking through all this, and I hope something sort of comes out of that.
You meant it first, but now I know you're talking about the ETs, right? As far as learning something.
The whole aspect of this, because remember I said to you I was told I had to read the Bible, and the whole time I'm reading the Bible, I kept thinking of, there was a Elizabeth April podcast that she did, and she was talking about how the reptilians were portraying themselves as gods, and they were the ones that were saying, you can't look at us, you can't do this. There was a lot of that in the back of my head when I was actually reading that, because I thought, well, then it kind of makes a little bit of sense. You've got a God who is not really what God is, if you know what I mean. So you've got this, right. You've got this being or this entity that's there portraying themselves as a god and being and enjoying the worship. And look, we're still doing that now. If you look at now, but instead you've got your music leaders, you've got people in power, you've got your actors. I mean, they're the ones.
You got Elon Musk. I think a lot of people think Elon Musk is a god or somebody, you know, like a pharaoh type figure.
Exactly.
Half god or
So
something.
it hasn't, nothing's really changed. You know, we're still doing the same thing. We are still worshipping these people who are above us. Yeah, these elites or whatever. So yeah, and this is what, you know, this is where we get back to, well, this is what we've got to try and change. And I'm pretty bloody sure that you and I were trying to do this back in Egypt. We were trying to change this back in Egypt, and we were both frustrated as heck then. And it's funny that we've come together now, so many thousands of years later.
Trying to do the same thing in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, they use us, everybody that's actually coming here and having these awakenings, most of these people, unless it's just the first time they've been, you know, that they've actually volunteered, have been used before to some degree as something. They may not have been a famous person, but they may have been an influential person and part of a movement, and may have done a lot of good within their community, and may have taken many, many different stands, or you know, there's a whole wide spectrum of things they could have done. So anyway, yeah. So now I need to get back to this memory that I had. I was in this contraption, this machine. I was arguing with the people in the room over a handicap, and they said, you're going to have to take a speech impairment. And I was concerned about how I would make a living. And I said to them, I'm supposed to be a teacher. How am I going to do that? I wasn't sure in the beginning if I was a teacher prior to coming here, or I was going to be a teacher here. In fact, I was told the opposite in the very beginning when I was able to make contact and ask questions. But then later on, I was told that it was kind of a little bit of both, because I had done it before. You know, just like, you know, the lifetime I had with you, we were teachers as well. We taught the religion. So that's a teaching, kind of like somebody who would get up and talk to people like we're doing right now. And so, yeah, I had a lot of background of that sort of type of social implant work. And I had also done that kind of work professionally in my ET life. So it was partially true, but for the most part, what I was talking about in that memory was being a social implant, because that's what I was going into, a type of program where they were going to give us hardships, and then the hardships would help change your value system, so that instead of being someone who would be completely you know, corruptible by, say, fame or money, if we ever got to that point, because it happens to a lot of people who become social implants. They get paid by Hollywood, they get paid, or, you know, those who become famous contactees, they get paid, and then it really distorts what they're actually here to do. So they wanted to create some
distracted. They get distracted, and that's done on purpose. They are distracted.
Yeah, well, exactly. But there's also an orchestrated effort to corrupt these people. So I was put into this program and a lot of other people, and it was actually a program that was structured like that. But then above that, there was a social experiment. I'll be getting into that more in another video. We don't have time to talk about that now. And I did talk about that a little bit last, you know, with Robert. So if anybody wants to check that out, I'll have a link in the description. But anyway, yeah, so what I'm pretty much getting to is that we've all been used before, and, you know, we're all starting to wake up. Now, in the memory, this machine filled up full of light, and I was able to see a fetus, what I identified to be the 12th week of conception or after conception. I was told that if they don't put a soul into a human container body, by that point in time, or right around that time, that a soul is born, because the embryo becomes fully conscious. The brain is developed enough to have activity, and that becomes a person. So that becomes a soul. And then Source has that memory, and that's what actually creates the soul. We're really just a thought form, or a memory of Source, a point of attention. So I think we should just use thought form. But anyway, so that's what took place. And then I had an unusual life from there. Now, so that's what an engineered lifetime is. And we're all technically inside an engineered lifetime, because we're all in an augmented reality that's unnatural. human souls and ET souls that are here are in an augmented reality. So there's an engineered lifetime that we're in. We're all in one. We're in an engineered reality, in an engineered planet. And we have to come together, and we have to fix ourselves, and we have to work our way out of this. And what it was shown to me is that the reason they're waking us up to this, because in the past, you could say in ancient times, there were periods of time where humanity was more psychically aware than others, but there was never a great awakening like this, where we're actually becoming aware that we are in an augmented reality, that it is controlled by other people outside of our control, and that they're stepping in the way between us and the collective consciousness. And now they're waking us up. So what are they doing? We are being used, and these are the star seeds. We are being used to socially engineer the population for this increase in psychic awareness that is taking place. And that's by the reduction of the planetary consciousness simulation. And it's a gradual process. You just can't turn this off, because you'd have all of these memories and all of these emotions come flooding in. Society and everyone in it would self-destruct in a very short period of time. At the bare minimum on emotional level, wouldn't be able to function. You couldn't handle this. It would be like, it would be the event that would make you lose your mind collectively and individually. So it has to be, right. So it has to be done over a period of time. And the culture, all of the cultures of the world have to adapt their belief system to eventually embrace this new belief system that, and then we reach to the point, that we're actually ready to make the transition for this all to come to an end, and for things to finally get back to their natural state, the way they never were in the first place, unfortunately, for those people who were here in this fledgling race project. But everybody else, the starseeds, the visitors, they're here, the ones that have volunteered to be awakened, they're here to help humanity transition over hundreds of years. This is supposed to be an 800-year awakening. That's what I was told. There's probably other people out there who are told something different. There's actually people out there right now are being told that this awakening is going to take place in the next couple of years, and that we're all going to be living like it's Star Trek, and the elites are going to be sent to another galaxy. Unfortunately, that's not true, and it would be too much too soon. We're not ready for this stuff. We're not ready to be able to do genetic engineering, because, and you could argue too that there are races out there that make bad decisions and do genetic experiments and cause suffering. And there's evidence, strong evidence from eyewitness testimony, that there's actually government programs that are secret underground facilities where, as part of this interaction between humanity and the extraterrestrials, and I'm talking about the elite level and their interaction with the ETs and these military programs, that they're doing terrible experiments on people and animals in these hybridization and genetic type of experimental programs that the ETs are chaperoning and actually lending a hand with, by allowing humanity to kind of tamper with everything and alter the overall genetic code of an organism and change it into something that may not be a good thing, and maybe horrible suffering involved in it. So that's happening as well. So I mean, everyone has an ethical choice here, and a lot of the things that we see in these ET programs, very much so, are unethical.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've been treated unethically in the program that I've been in. But then you could argue also too that I volunteered for something and I accepted any possibility. But it doesn't make you feel any better when you get to that point where you realize that, hey, I've been abducted, or I've been put through a social experiment, and I've had non-physical ET contact, and I've been put through a lot of misery and horrible things, because for the most part, you could have very negative ET contact within these type of experimental programs that they run and never be abducted. It's all consciousness based. And a lot of people who are abducted have kind of a combination of non-physical and physical experiences, some of which they can't tell apart. And remember when we were talking like some time ago, probably over a year ago, and you were sending me these stories online where these people were abducted, and they suddenly just said to themselves, okay, I'm going to invoke Jesus Christ, or I'm going to invoke Allah. or I'm going to put a shield of light around myself, right? And then they're instantaneously transported back to the point of abduction. They find themselves in their bed and everything's fine. Remember when you were sending those to me?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was causing that? What do you think was actually happening? Do you think it was a because I've already told you what it is before. Now that depends on whether you accept it or not, because you didn't get it from, you got it from me, and it didn't come from a source, from an ET source. So it just came through from ET to me to you. And you may have your own, beliefs about it. And I never really talked a lot about it. Actually, with you, and that's the pot's messing me up. But anyway, what do you think it is? What do you think's going on there? Do you think it's demonic contact? Is it spiritual? Is it
I think some of it
spirits?
is.
What is it?
I actually do believe some of it is. I actually believe you've got demons out there exposing themselves or manipulating the situation as ETs and pretending to be ETs. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that control that they've got. And I mean, there's been some very interesting. I know I sent you some articles, but there was some also. I can't remember the guy's name. Joe somebody. He stepped into the limelight with all of these abductions and stuff, and he started a Christian group and was helping people deal with these abductions, because I mean, realistically, we're not meant to be manipulated like that. That was not God's intention. And if you recall that, what was her name? Turner, was it Turner?
Yeah, her name is
Carla
Turner. Yeah.
Yes. Well, she did a lot of work with abductees as well, and she ended up being absolutely horrified by what was happening. And she, in one of her interviews, was actually really angry about the whole situation. And she was saying that this is not what God intended for us. We were meant to have a life here on earth that was separate from all this BS. And she was really quite angry. And I thought, well, there's just been all these little snippets and things that have been happening. And look, I have read a huge broad range of stuff since 15, 16. And then I got to a point, but it's very interesting now that a lot of it is actually helping connect the dots. So when you look at the stuff that's happening, and then you've got all this underground stuff that's been happening, and they've actually got underground tunnels and systems, and there's cities apparently under there. I mean, it kind of all makes sense when you listen to, say, John Lear's last interview, where he said, you know what, and this was in the 1980s, I think. He said, you know what, I'm just going to live my life, enjoy my kids, make the most of what's around me in my environment, and I'm not going to worry about anything else, because basically Earth is a farm. And that kind of, slaps you into reality when you think about it. And I mean, now when you
harvesting something to consume, though. So I mean,
yeah, well,
I don't know what it means by farming. Is that what he means? I don't know.
Well, I think
that.
Well, I mean, but if you look at the children that are being held captive, they're being farmed. I mean, the whole thing.
Well, that's people doing it. I think he was referring to ET. He said it's soul farm, didn't he?
It's not all people doing it. You talk about the elites, and you've got that hierarchy. You've got that ET influence there as well. It's not just humans. We are being manipulated to do this stuff.
Well, yeah, absolutely, but.
And is it demonic? Yes, it is freaking demonic. It's beyond demonic. Some of it's absolutely horrendous. So, yeah, we need. Hey?
When you say, well, obviously what you're referring to is that it's evil. But you're actually referring to a separate class of conscious entities that would be supremely evil and would actually be there to manipulate humanity. But how do you process that with an extraterrestrial created augmented reality? Would they be letting the demons in? I mean, if you had the capability of controlling consciousness on an entire planetary level, I think you definitely would have the ability to keep a demon out, because you'd be at least equal to that, or if not above it, because a demon can mess with one person, but the extraterrestrials they're messing with everybody completely at the same time. They've got the entire planet under sort of a closed loop consciousness simulation. So technically, if you look at it from that perspective, it's very likely that they're manufacturing all of these things, and what people perceive as a demon is actually extraterrestrial stagecraft.
Yeah, well, see, I don't know about that, because if you
Because you have
believe
to
in
have
free
negative
will,
and positive to guide us.
if you have free will though, and if you're someone that has had a bad experience in your life, maybe over several lifetimes even, and you have this energy buildup, and then you die and you actually stay here on the planet because you have free will, okay, then that changes things a little bit too, doesn't it? Because if you look at people who have actually gone to these situations where there's been demonic or there's been poltergeist activity, and when they've actually spoken to the entity involved, the entity's actually said to them, look, I'm basically scared to go to the light. I mean, this person goes and says, right, we need to send you home, we need to send you to the light. And she says, regardless of whether they're good or bad, they go to the light because that's where they got to go. Like God recycles, so that's where it's got to go. Whether God does recycle or not, I really don't know. So I kind of think he does, but who knows? So for these entities that are terrified to face the light and the judgment, because that's what they've been indoctrinated with their whole life. Now, keeping in mind, they might have been hiding in a basement for 1,000 years. When you think of that energy is going to be really quite powerful after that time. Because if you've got that many years experience,
they're gonna figure out some tricks.
Exactly. So see, it's not, I don't believe it's as clear cut as what, I mean, I like your idea of this is how it is and that's it, but I really, it doesn't resonate with me 100%. So you've got, yeah, you've definitely got some a good argument there for one section, but it doesn't explain everything. And this has been my whole problem with this whole scenario my whole life. I can't actually.
Well, let me throw a few in for you. Would you like to hear some? I just had yesterday, I was speaking to another contactee on Zoom for several hours, and I've talked to this person probably about 10 hours. Anyway, he's somebody that is actually going to be, and there's actually more people, we've already talked about this, that are going to be actually, we got to stop saying actually, it's the weed. So
actually,
yeah, all of it, however I said it, I got to get it together. So anyway, these are people that are coming to help us with the Voices of Orion project. They're going to be helping us with the community and other things that we're going to be doing. And they're also here to help us learn, and for them to learn from us. We're learning from each other. Now, I was talking to him and we were having a very similar conversation. And I brought up how it was explained to me, which was that there are various nested consciousness simulations. And that accounts for spirits, that accounts for, the whole thing with orbs, everything. And if you have nested consciousness simulation, what I mean by that is that there is parallel augmented realities that are actually running alongside of one another, to where if you like, say for example, you're an earthbound soul, you're from Earth, you're in this perpetual recycling system where you constantly are reincarnated, but your memory of it is wiped. And the reason that people's memory of these lifetimes are wiped is also the same reason that you're not connected to source, and they're stepping in the way, because if you were connected to the source consciousness, you'd remember all of your past lives. All of that would be accessible, like the Akashic record type thing. So you have these nested consciousness simulations, and they're manipulating our consciousness, and they've locked people into these various levels of reality. So we're in what we perceive to be as the physical reality, but then you have the spirit world, and it appears that you have residual hauntings. And how it was explained to me is that the residual hauntings are actually somebody in an individual consciousness simulation. They're there by themselves, and they're not aware that there's anybody else around them, or maybe they're in there with a small group of people, and it'll be a mutual or a group consciousness simulation, and they're just repeating things over and over again. or they live in a house that's maybe for 1,000, like you just said, trapped in a basement for 1,000 years. Well, to them, that basement looks the same as it always did. It may not even be there anymore. It could just be a buried foundation, and they're still in the property, but they're locked into a consciousness simulation, and they can be locked to a certain area as well. And another thing too, with these entities or these souls not wanting to go into the light, they know that nobody's coming back from it. But I was told too, and this is interesting, so I'm going to explain all this and just get your thoughts on it, Diane. Okay, like not every soul is capable of actually being reincarnated after they die, because they could have severe issues. And it's what they want to do is they put them into a consciousness simulation, maybe by themselves or with a group. Maybe it's an entire population that are on a certain, like a certain, level of consciousness. They're in a nested consciousness simulation as a large group or a large population. And all these people fit a certain criteria. So you take the really bad ones and you put them in an individual consciousness simulation, or you take the really troubled ones and you put them in one for a period of time, and then maybe you move them up. But when you have like entities that don't want to go into the light, and then they do, and they're really violent and they have a horrible, like there's all this stuff going on in the household, and they're really attacking the family. I was told that those people aren't necessarily incarnated or recycled. They're actually sent someplace else. They're relocated, and they're put into a type of a consciousness simulation where they can't come back and harass the family anymore. Other times they're just ran off, and that's why the haunting picks back up again over a period of time. So all this was kind of explained to me, and that the spirit mediums are there to kind of help people to kind of herd the souls to where they need to go. They're like the intermediaries between the ET consciousness simulation control system, because they need people who are here. Some of these people are star seeds and some of them aren't. Not all light workers are star seeds, because the ET presence needs people who are from Earth, who have earthbound souls, this planet belongs to them. They're going to inherit it and be free eventually. They need to be here to be light workers as well, and to help continue to engineer the population for, to where we can make a better world. So they have to carry on the work that they're also doing now, as well as what the star seeds are here to influence. So, I mean, I think that would explain a lot of this. Now, I'm just giving terms, but I'm also giving concepts, and it does fit with what we see. What do you think?
Again, I think it does to a certain degree, but I also think that there's, again, so much more that we really don't quite understand.
Here's a missing component too. This person also said he referred to Lucifer as being kind of trapped here on Earth, because we did talk about Earth being used as a spiritual prison. And by the way, I've got completely ridiculous setup here, so I have to look up at a camera, and when I'm looking down, I'm looking at Diane sticking at her tongue and stuff. So I need to fix this so I can look at the camera and look at her, so or whoever else I'm talking to. But anyway, he talked about Lucifer being an actual individual, an actual person, and well, that's an extraterrestrial that was actually, stuck here. Now, the Farsight Institute did a remote viewing study on Lucifer, and I don't remember. I watched it. For some reason, I can't recall a whole lot about it, and I didn't watch it before this because I didn't think we'd ever get to this. But it was an extraterrestrial, was a person who had abilities and was doing bad shit. Now, I was told, what this person told me is that Lucifer and some of these other gods that have been here before, ETs portraying themselves as gods, have become really bad actors, and they have got them trapped here. And that's what fits into the consciousness simulation concept. You could take an extraterrestrial that portrayed Lucifer as and abused it. I don't know the whole, I mean, I know that ETs portray these gods, so I don't know exactly the whole situation here. I know that's what the Farsight Institute saw. That's what I was told. But why would they be here again? Maybe they were just a very bad person, and now they're trapped here as well, because maybe they did crimes. They were mentally ill. They're trapped here as well. But maybe they're being used in a completely different way. And you were talking about ETs manipulating society, right? And A lot of people say that there's certain royal families who are actually reptilians. Okay. And there's a lot of people that say that they see them, and there was a woman at standing outside of Windsor Palace. I think you sent me that particular video where she was claiming to have been raped actually at Windsor Palace, and that she had seen the elite family. I think it was Queen Elizabeth, was it, that shapeshifted in front of her? Now, this is possible, it's not a physical shape shifting. It could just be an energetic projection that the person is seeing. So they're actually showing who they are. It appears that, and the way it was explained to me is that these beings, they would be reptilian in this example, but they don't have to be, that they're in a controlled state of consciousness and they're carrying out a specific job that they're really not aware of. I mean, they're probably, from the way it was explained to me, is that there are star seeds in the elite families as well. And that's how they control these people. They also use other forms of manipulation, but they use these elite families by putting star seeds in these families that are manipulated by the extraterrestrials to carry out positive and negative acts in society. Now, Hitler, I was told, was a Draco star seed who was sent here to do what he did. And so what it really comes down to, and I talked about an engineered reality and an engineered world, is that they're actually putting people here, not just like, not just people like us that are here to do something good for others, but you've got plenty of other people who are here to do real serious damage and to take humanity into a very dark place as a learning lesson where we have to save ourselves and fight back against it. So it's a staged battle between light and, between the forces of good and the forces of evil. That's the best way to put it. Okay, so, and he talked about Lucifer being trapped here, but not physically. So that's when I started to think, and what I got was, because I didn't get any real details from Ash, but I just kind of got a confirmation that I've just learned something new, because it's something that we're going to pursue later, is what I kind of got from him, is that certain entities, certain souls or extraterrestrials that are put here under a controlled state of consciousness, and not all of them are actually physical. Some of these entities are actually here, and they kind of fit the description of like Satan or like a Lucifer character that we find in scripture, a fallen angel that's here to influence humanity in a negative way. So what he was explaining to me is essentially a different way of looking at what the Bible says, but from an extraterrestrial perspective. And then I plugged in the nested consciousness simulation concept that I was given. That wasn't a concept. They said this is how it really is done. So what if you had an extraterrestrial that didn't have complete self-awareness of who they were before, just like we don't, but they were inside a consciousness simulation that allowed them to do terrible things and to negatively affect humanity, just like the Satan that they describe in the Bible. What do you think about that? Because that was the thing I took away last night from this 3+ hour discussion that I had with this person. It was one of the key things that I took away from it that really changed the way I looked at things in just a bit, not completely, but just enough to where it was new information. So what do you think?
Well, I think there's probably some truth in that, but I also think that you're back to the light and dark. We're both part and parcel of the same thing. Whether you go down the dark path or the light path, I mean, it's all a choice. And I was told that some time ago. I started reading some stuff and I actually got a push, and that was when I got a push to read the Bible. Like, you need to make a choice. You're either on this side or that side, make a choice. And it was something I couldn't avoid. And this was after we started talking about things, and I was questioning things because I said I've read so much in the past. And
hold on a second. They said make a choice about what?
On which side you're on?
Well,
Are you on the light side or the
kind of
dark
a
side?
silly
You're
way
on
to
my
put it,
side, you're
because
on that side.
you already
It
know
really
what side
was.
you're on, but you know what side you're on. Do you think they were just saying it that way so that you would take it more seriously and actually read it? Because
No, because I was actually reading stuff
to it.
on the Sumerian tablets, and I was getting quite involved with it. And I thought, okay, so this was the Enki and Enlil stuff, and actually Ninmah was the one who actually created us. And I think I said to you, I thought it was really interesting how she had spent all this time making us in these crystal vials, and we never came out the way we were supposed to. Now this is all in the Sumerian tablets, and I actually got quite entrenched in it all, and I thought, all right, this is incredible. That makes sense, because that sort of, ties in with that part of religion, that ties in with, but this was when I got a slap around the head and told, are you going to believe this stuff? And I'm like, whoa, okay. So no, it actually made me question everything, and it also put me back on the right path, I guess, which is where I am now. And I'm not stepping off that path, because I know that that's where I'm meant to be. So and again, you come back to the same thing where you've got people who are bad on earth and they do bad things, they'll kill people or whatever, but the mediums, when they're actually sending them home, they're sending them to the light. We all go to the same place. So at the end of the day, whether you do good or bad,
you're all going into the light.
Yeah,
you're all going to the light, but that doesn't mean you're going to the same place.
Well, it kind of does. I mean, you're going back to some kind of judgment or reestablishment program, or whatever you want to call it. It's some sort of like,
well, then you're going to different places.
Hey,
I said you're going to different places. I came from a different place. You have people who are going to other worlds, and then
that happens afterwards. I believe when you die, you actually go to a judgment area. You will be not judged in a bad way, but you will be shown like, and I've read so many books on this.
Well, that's the life review that's the life review process.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, well, this is what happened, and did you deal with it properly, or did you do the right thing? Now feel the pain that you've caused these people. So you are accountable for what you do. You don't get off scot-free, regardless of who you are or who you think you are.
Now, what you also have to remember, though, those experiences of the life review are reported by people who had a near-death experience. Like what I was talking about earlier, they've come back to influence. So that doesn't necessarily make it true. I'm saying that what happened to them is true, and its effect on them was certainly profound in most cases, especially if you have a really profound experience where you do have the life review and everything else. And I heard there was one particular story where they saw this, like they had the psychic vision in the life review, where they were shown how, and they were shown a pond of water that was still, and they threw a rock into it, and they showed the ripple effect. And they said, everything that you do in your life has an effect, just like the ripples in this pond, and it influences everybody else. And they were able to see it from the source perspective, the collective consciousness perspective, which is the macro, and instead of the micro of how it affected everybody. And they were able to sense it and feel what they went through kind of simultaneously, like rapidly, like a psychic download. And
I've just got to let you know I'm on 10%, so this might.
Okay, well, we need to wrap this up soon. It's actually 4 a.m. here, so we're gonna have to break. We're gonna actually have to split this podcast up in 2 or more parts, and this will be like a super long.
Great though. I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been really good. I hope everybody else gets to enjoy some of it too. And that I would really like to just say too, some input from people would be amazing. Like if they've got their own ideas or their own experiences that they've had, then we would love to hear them, because ultimately that's why we're here, right? We're here to actually get feedback and find out what other people have experienced.
And without having the website done, without having a forum, we're not able to get that feedback. And I'm really curious, is maybe YouTube is taking some of these down, because I've had them actually delete all the comments under one particular video that had to do with vaccines, and it was a satirical video that I did, and they deleted everybody, and I had to cut and paste them. And I just find it a little bit suspicious, but it isn't that bad, because on the other channels that we have where I'm uploading these, and actually not here on YouTube, there's several other platforms like Rumble, for example, where these videos aren't getting any comments at all, but are getting views. And I mean, is everybody just dumbfounded after they listen to us, or are we hitting the wrong audience, or is somebody actually taking them down? So that's the question. So if really we need your help, we'd like to get your feedback. So if you could please tell us your thoughts and put them in the comment section, no matter what platform we're on, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey, BitChute, or anything else. Please engage us in the conversation. We don't do a lot of videos right now. We're going to be doing more eventually, but we do have time to come back and interact with you, because we want to hear from you and we want to get your feedback. And please make the comments, because you're going to meet other people who are here who are like-minded, who you may meet a new friend, for example. But until we have a community forum, this is it. So, and that's going to come soon, but it really depends on, and we could have a community forum and nobody shows up, or nobody talks. They sign up for an account, but nobody says anything. So it really doesn't matter where it is. We just need you guys to comment, because we really love to hear what you have to say.
Yep. That would be good.
And I think we're reaching enough people where somebody should speak up, and one or two are, but for some reason I had more comments when I had fewer subscribers. It's very strange.
That is strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there may be some actors out there in big tech that may have something to do with that.
Something fishy is afoot.
Right. There's a flea in the bed sheets. And that's a new saying. There's actually a flea in the bed sheets, or a bed bug.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, because I'm going to take one of these kids home. And lovely to talk to you as always. And look forward to tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, we're supposed to have another interview with Robert, and he has this hard to remember name here, because it's more of a sentence than just a name. Typical Skeptic Podcast UFO PSI. Robert's a great guy. I've told him he's a starseed. I don't know if he really accepts that yet, but I think he will, because he's beginning to have an increase in psychic awareness, and it isn't just because everybody is. It's because he's really doing some good work. So check out his channel, and I'll put a link in the description, because I want to put our video, and check it out. He's got some really, really good interviews. And he's somebody that needs to be seen just like us. So we're just trying to network together and get other people to pay attention to us, and hopefully pay attention to him. And I think, together, and then hopefully with a few other channels helping us out, and we can help them, we can actually get around the censorship and around the shadow banning that big tech is engaging in, because big tech is really after UFO channels now for some reason. And I think it has a lot to do with that we actually talk about a lot of subjects that they're trying to censor, but even channels that don't talk about those subjects are getting shadow banned, and they're being censored, because apparently there's an effort to shut us down. And I think it really has to do with the Great Awakening itself. And I think that the government, through big tech, wants to control the ET narrative, and they want to give us the controlled form of disclosure, and we have to come together and figure out ways to overcome this, because it's the experiencers that are supposed to be here to give the real disclosure, not the government, and not anybody else, and not the gatekeepers out there in the UFO community. And they know who they are. These are the people that work for the Central Intelligence Agency, or have been paid off, or essentially just put into a state of mind where they really don't want to talk to the experiencers, and they'd rather just talk about their self or whatever they've done in the past, and old cases, and just kind of stay with the controlled narrative. And there's a lot of people out there, because that's how you make money, and that's how money corrupts this that's it. The whole awakening, for that matter. So if you have anything left to say, Diane?
No, just love and light to everybody out there that's been watching, and thanks for sticking with us this far. And we look forward to talking to you again.
Great. And it's late, so hopefully I get this right. Let me do it. It's the first take and only take of this. I just want to give you a profound statement before I go, which is reality is our reality is our creator's dream, and we are nothing but thoughts in a never-ending story. So let's gather together and take the pen of destiny and write a better story for ourselves. I think I did okay with that, don't you think?
That sounds pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the Great Awakening in a metaphorical statement. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. Can't wait to see you next time, and take care and be good to each other.